Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Callahan. I am here to read chapter 1 of Artemis Fowl. Hopefully by now you've been able to see the book trailer where I read the back of the book and I read the prologue. Kind of introduced our main character Artemis Fowl to you a little bit. So now I'm going to read chapter 1. I'm going to warn you, you might hear some purring in the background. I'm going to turn the camera a little bit. Look, I'm joined by my friend Rosie. She's my little kitty cat. So if you hear some purring in the background, that's why. All right, let's get the camera reset. Oh, you can see Mr. Callahan over there. He's playing Animal Crossing. Say hi, Mr. Callahan. All right, get this all set back up. Are you ready? Here we go. Chapter 1, The Book. Ho Chi Minh City in the summer. Sweltering by anyone's standards. Needless to say, Artemis Fowl would not have been willing to put up with such discomfort if something extremely important had not been at stake. Important to the plan. Ooh, mysterious already. Sun did not suit Artemis. He did not look well in it. All right, there we go. Long hours indoors in front of a computer screen had bleached the glow from his skin. He was as white as a vampire and almost as testy in the light of day. Can you kind of picture that? No, I can. I hope this isn't another wild goose chase, Butler, he said, his voice soft and clipped, especially after Cairo. It was a gentle rebuke. They had traveled to Egypt on the word of Butler's informant. No, sir, I'm certain this time. Nugent is a good man. Droned Artemis, unconvinced. Passerbys would have been amazed to hear the large Eurasian man refer to the boy as sir. So picture that for a moment. Butler is a very large, grown man, and he's talking to this boy, this 12-year-old boy that we know Artemis is, and he's calling him sir. It's kind of strange, right? This was, after all, the third millennium, but this was no ordinary relationship, and these were no ordinary tourists. They were sitting outside a curbside cafe on Dong Kai Street, watching the local teenagers circle the square on mopeds. Nugent was late, and the pathetic patch of shade provided by the umbrella was doing little to improve Artemis's mood. But this was just his daily pessimism. It means he's kind of a negative person. Beneath the sulk was a spark of hope. Could this trip actually yield results? Would they find the book? It was too much to hope for. A waiter scurried to their table. "More tea, sirs?" he asked, his head bobbing furiously. Artemis sighed. "Spare me the theatrics and sit down." The waiter turned instinctively to Butler, who was, after all, the adult at the table. "But, sir, I am the waiter." Artemis tapped the table for attention. "You are wearing handmade loafers, a silk shirt, and 3 gold signet rings. Your English has a tinge of Oxford about it, and your nails have the soft sheen of the recently manicured. You are not a waiter. You are a contact, Nugent Yuan, and you have adopted this pathetic disguise to discreetly check for weaponry." Whoa, he's pretty observant, huh? Nugent's shoulders sagged. "It's true. Amazing." "Hardly. A ragged apron does not a waiter make." Nugent sat pouring some mint tea into a tiny china cup. "Let me fill you in on the weapon status," continued Artemis. "I am unarmed, but Butler here, Butler, has a Sig Sauer in his shoulder holster, 2 Shrike throwing knives in his boots, a Derringer 2-shot in his sleeve, Garrett wire in his watch, and 3 stun grenades concealed in various pockets." "Anything else, Butler?" "The Kosh, sir." "Oh, yes. A good old ball-bearing Kosh stuffed down his shirt." Nugent brought the cup trembling to his lips. "Don't be alarmed, Master Juan," Artemis smiled. "The weapons will not be used on you." Nugent didn't seem reassured. "No," continued Artemis, "Butler could kill you 100 different ways without the use of his weapons, though I'm sure one would be quite sufficient." Nugent was by now thoroughly spooked. Artemis generally had that effect on people. A pale adolescent speaking with the authority and vocabulary of a powerful adult. Nugent had heard the name Fowl before. Who hadn't in the international underworld? But he'd assumed he'd be dealing with Artemis Sr., not the boy. though the word boy hardly seemed to do this gaunt individual justice. And the giant, Butler. It was obvious that he could snap a man's backbone like a twig with those mammoth hands. Nugent was starting to think that no amount of money was worth another minute in this strange company. "And now to business," said Artemis, placing a micro-recorder on the table. "You answered our web advertisement." Nugent nodded, suddenly praying that his information was accurate. "Yes, Master Fowl, what you're looking for? I know where it is." "Really? And I'm supposed to take your word for this? You could be walking me in straight into an ambush. My family is not without enemies, you know." Butler snatched a mosquito out of the air beside his employer's ear. "No, no," said Nugent, reaching for his wallet. "Here, look." Artemis studied the Polaroid he withdrew. He willed his heart to maintain a calm beat. It seemed promising, but anything could be faked these days with a PC and a flatbed scanner. The picture showed a hand reaching from layered shadows. A mottled green hand. He murmured. "Explain." "This woman. She is a healer near Tudo Street. She works in exchange for rice wine." Artemis nodded. It made sense. They're drinking. One of the few consistent facts his research had unearthed. He stood, pulling the creases from his white polo shirt. "Very well. Lead on, Master Juan." Nugent wiped the sweat away from his stringy mustache. "Information only. That was the agreement. I don't want any curses on my head." Butler expertly gripped the informant behind the neck. "I'm sorry, Mr. Juan, but the time when you had a choice in matters is long past." Butler steered the protesting Vietnamese man to the rented four-wheel drive. It was hardly necessary on the flat streets of Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon, as the locals still called it, but Artemis preferred to be as insulated from civilians as possible. The Jeep inched forward at a painfully slow rate, made all the more excruciating by the anticipation building in Artemis's chest. He could suppress it no longer. Could they at last be at the end of their quest? After 6 false alarms across 3 continents, could this wine-sodden healer be the gold at the end of the rainbow? Artemis almost chuckled. Gold at the end of the rainbow. He'd made a joke. Now there's something that hadn't happened every day. So obviously whatever he's looking for, he really wants. It says his heart is beating so fast, he's anticipating it, and he's had 6 false alarms across 3 continents looking for whatever this book is that he's looking for. The mopeds parted like a fish in a giant shoal. There seemed to be no end to the crowds. Even the alleyway were full to bursting with vendors and hagglers, cooks dropping fish heads into the walks of hissing oil, and urchins threaded their way underfoot searching for unguarded valuables. Others sat in the shade, wearing out their thumbs on Game Boys. So I'm trying to picture this in my head, and they're driving through a whole sea of people. It seems like it's a busy marketplace. There's people on mopeds. There's people trying to sell things. It seems like there's people cooking. So it's a very, very busy place that he's trying to get through. So kind of picture that in your mind. Nugent was sweating right through his khaki top. It wasn't the humidity. He was used to that. It was this whole cursed situation. He should have known better than to mix magic and crime. He made a silent promise that if he got out of this, he would change his ways. No more answering shady internet requests, and certainly no more consorting with the sons of European crime lords. The Jeep could only go so far. Eventually the side streets grew too narrow for the four-wheel drive. Artemis turned to Nugent. "It seems like we must proceed on foot, Mr. Juan. Run if you'd like, but expect a sharp and fatal pain between your shoulder blades." Nugent glanced into Butler's eyes. They were a deep blue, almost black. There was no mercy in those eyes. "Don't worry," Nugent said. "I won't run." He climbed down from the vehicle. 1,000 suspicious eyes followed their progress across the steaming alley. An unfortunate pickpocket attempt to steal Butler's wallet. The manservant broke the man's fingers without looking down. They were given wide berth after that. So it seems as though someone tried to pickpocket Butler, and he broke their hand, and then people said, "Whoa, I'm going to stay away from you." The alley narrowed to a rutted lane. Sewage and drain pipes fed directly onto the muddy surface. Cripples and beggars huddled on rice mat islands. Most of the residents of this lane had nothing to spare, with the exception of the 3. Well, demanded Artemis, where is she? Nugent jabbed a finger toward the black triangle beneath a rusted fire escape. There, under there. She never comes out. Even to buy rice spirits, she sends a runner. Now can I go? Artemis didn't bother answering. Instead, he picked his way across the puddled lane to the lee of the fire escape. He could discern furtive movements in the shadows. Butler, could you hand me the goggles? Butler plucked out a set of night vision glasses from his belt and placed them in Artemis's outstretched hand. The focus motor buzzed to suit the light. Artemis fixed the glasses to his face. Everything became radioactive green. Maybe you've seen these in a movie or TV show or even on a video game before. They're special goggles that you can put on, and it helps you to see in the dark. So where he's going is very dark. Taking a deep breath, he turned his gaze to the squirming shadows. Something squatted on a raffia mat, shifting uneasily in the almost non-existent light. Artemis fine-tuned the focus. The figure was small, abnormally small, and wrapped in a filthy shawl. Empty jugs were half buried in the mud around her. One forearm poked from the material. It seemed green, but then so did everything else because of the goggles. Madam, he said, I have a proposition for you. The figure's head wobbled sleepily. Wine, she rasped, her voice like nails on a school board. Wine. English? Artemis smiled. The gift of tongues, check. Aversion to light, check. So he seems to be going down a checklist, that she knows about a lot of languages. She doesn't like the light. So he has kind of an idea about her a little bit. I'm Irish, actually. Now, about my proposition. The healer shook a bony finger craftily. Wine first, then talk. Butler? The bodyguard reached into a pocket and drew out a half pint of the finest Irish whiskey. Artemis took the bottle and held it teasingly beyond the shadows. He barely had time to remove his goggles when the claw-like hand darted from the gloom to snatch the bottle. A mottled green hand. There was no doubt. Artemis swallowed a triumphant grin. He's happy about something. Pay our friend Butler in full. Remember, Mr. Wan, this is between us. You don't want Butler to come back, do you? No, no, Master Fowl. My lips are sealed. They had better be, or Butler will seal them permanently. Nugent skipped off down the alley, so relieved to be alive that he didn't even bother counting the sheaf of U.S. currency. Most unlike him. In any event, it was all there. All $20,000. Not bad for a half an hour's work. So whatever this information is that he led Artemis to, Artemis paid him $20,000 for it. So again, some more clues that whatever he's after, he really, really wants it. Artemis turned back to the healer. Now, madam, you have something I want. A healer's tongue caught a drop of alcohol at the corner of her mouth. Yes, Irish. Sore head? Bad tooth? I heal. Artemis replaced the night vision goggles and squatted to her level. I am perfectly healthy, madam, apart from the slight dust mite allergy, and I don't think even you can do anything about that. No, what I want from you is your book. The hag froze. Bright eyes glinted from beneath the shawl. Book? She said cautiously. I don't know about no book. I am healer. You want book? Go to library. Artemis sighed with exaggerated patience. You are no healer. You are a sprite, a fairy, a Kadalan, whichever language you prefer to use, and I want your book. For a long moment the creature said nothing. Then she threw back the shawl from her forehead. In the green glow of the night vision goggles, her features leapt at Artemis like a Halloween mask. The fairy's nose was long and hooked under two slitted golden eyes. Her ears were pointed, and the alcohol addiction had melted her skin like putty. If you know about the book, human, she said slowly, fighting the numbing effects of the whiskey, then you know about the magic I have in my fist. I can kill you with a snap of my fingers. Artemis shrugged. I think not. Look at you. You're near dead. The rice wine has dulled your senses. reduced to healing warts. Pathetic. I'm here to save you in return for the book. What could a human want with our book? That is no concern of yours. All you need to know are your options. The sprite's pointed ears quivered. Options? 1. You refuse to give us the book and we go home, leaving you to rot in this sewer. Yes, said the fairy. I choose that option. Ah, no, don't be so eager. If we leave without the book, you'll be dead in a day. A day? A day? The healer laughed. I will outlive you by a century. Even fairies tethered to the human realm can survive the ages. Not with a half a pint of holy water inside them, said Artemis, tapping the now empty whiskey bottle he had handed her. The fairy blanched, then screamed, a high, keening, horrible sound. Holy water! You have murdered me, human! True, admitted Artemis. It should start to burn away at you any minute. The fairy poked her stomach tentatively. The second option? Listening now, are we? Very well then. Option 2. You give me the book for 30 minutes only. Then I return your magic to you. The sprite's jaw dropped. Return my magic? Not possible. Oh, but it is. I have in my possession 2 amples. 1, a vial of spring water from the fairy well 60 meters below the ring of Tara, perhaps the most magical place on earth. This will counteract the holy water I have given you. And the other? The other is a little shot of man-made magic, a virus that feeds on alcohol, mixed with a growth agent. It will flush every drop of rice wine from your body, remove the dependence, and even bolster your failing organs. It'll be messy, but after a day you'll be zipping around as though you were 1,000 years old again. How do I know to trust you, human? You have already tricked me once. Good point. Here's the deal. I give you the water on faith. Then, after I've had a look at the book, you get the booster. Take it or leave it. The fairy considered. The pain was already curling around her abdomen. She thrust out her wrist. I'll take it. I thought you might. Butler? The giant manservant unwrapped a soft velcroed case containing a syringe gun and 2 vials. He loaded the clear one, shooting it into the sprite's clammy arm. The fairy stiffened momentarily, then relaxed. Strong magic, she breathed. Yes, but not as strong as your own will be when I give you the second injection. Now, the book. The sprite reached into the folds of her filthy robe, rummaging around for an age. Artemis held his breath. This was it. Soon the Fowls would be great again. A new empire would rise, with Artemis Fowl II at its lead. The fairy woman withdrew a closed fist. No use to you, anyway. Written in the old tongue. Artemis nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She opened her knobby fingers. Lying in her palm was a tiny golden volume the size of a matchbook. So a teeny tiny little book. Here, human. 30 of your minutes and no more. Butler took the tiny tome reverently. The bodyguard activated a compact digital camera and began to photograph each wafer-thin page of the book. The process took several minutes. When he was finished, the entire book was stored on the camera's memory chip. Artemis preferred not to take any chances with information. Airport security equipment had been known to wipe many a vital disk, so he instructed his aide to transfer the file to his portable phone and from there email it to Fowl Manor in Dublin, Ireland. Before the 30 minutes were up, the file containing every symbol in the fairy book was sitting safely in the Fowl server. Artemis returned the tiny book to its owner. Nice doing business with you. The sprite lurched to her knees. The other potion, human? Artemis smiled. Oh, yes, the restoring booster. I suppose I did promise. Yes, human promised. Very well, but before we administer it, I must warn you that purging is not pleasant. You're not going to enjoy this one bit. The fairy gestured around at her squalid filth. You think I enjoy this? I want to fly again. Butler loaded the second vial, shooting this one straight into the carotid artery, which is in your neck. The sprite immediately collapsed on the mat, her entire frame quivering violently. Time to leave, commented Artemis. 100 years of alcohol leaving a body by any means possible is not going to be a pretty sight. The butlers had been serving the fowls for centuries. It had always been that way. Indeed, there were several eminent linguists of opinion that this was how the common noun had originated. The first record of this unusual arrangement was when Virgil Butler had been contracted as a servant, bodyguard, and cook to Lord Hugo de Fowl for one of the first great Norman Crusades. At the age of 10, Butler children were sent to a private training center in Israel, where they were taught specialized skills necessary to guard the latest in the fowl line. These skills include cordon bleu cooking, marksmanship, a customized blend of martial arts, emergency medicine, and information technology. If, at the end of their training, there was not a fowl to guard, then the butlers were eagerly snapped up as bodyguards for various royal personnel, generally in Moscow or Saudi Arabia. Once a fowl and a butler were put together, they were paired for life. It was a demanding job and lonely, but the rewards were handsome if you survived to enjoy them. If not, then your family received a 6-figure settlement plus a monthly pension. It's a lot of money. The current butler had been guarding young Master Artemis for 12 years, since the moment of his birth. And, though they adhered to the age-old formalities, they were much more than master and servant. Artemis was the closest thing Butler had to a friend, and Butler was the closest Artemis had to a father, albeit one who obeyed orders. Butler held his tongue until they were aboard the Heathrow connection from Bangkok. Then he had to ask, "Artemis?" Artemis looked up from the screen of his power book. He was getting a head start on the translation. "Yes." "The sprite. Why didn't we simply keep the book and leave her to die?" "A corpse is evidence, Butler. My way, the people will have no reason to be suspicious." "But the sprite?" "I hardly think she will confess to showing humans the book. In any case, I mixed a slight amnesiac into her second injection. When she finally wakes up, the last week will be a blur." Butler nodded appreciatively. Always 2 steps ahead. That was Master Artemis. People said he was a chip off the old block. They were wrong. Master Artemis was a brand new block, the likes of which had never been seen before. Doubts assuaged, Butler returned to his copy of Guns and Ammo, leaving his employer to unravel the secrets of the universe. That's the end of the chapter. Chapter 2 is called Translation. So he obviously got this book. It seems like it's the first step in some sort of plan he has. And he managed to trick the fairy a little bit, so that way she won't even be able to admit that she shared this book with a human. I don't know. Very mysterious. I know I'm intrigued. I can't wait to see what happens. So tune in next time. We'll read chapter 2. Like I said, it's called Translation, and maybe we'll learn a little bit more about this book and about Artemis's plan. But for now, have a good night, a good day, whenever you're watching this. I hope that you are well and healthy and enjoying your time at home. And I miss you all very much. I'll see you soon. Bye.